The voice of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
Selamat pagi.
Hi everyone, this is Gowri.
This is Arlene and you're listening as usual to
ASEAN.com.
Yeah, it's not a fruit, but we are a radio station and online one, by the way.
I'm sure they got that. So how is everyone doing today? How are you doing today, Arlene?
Oh, I'm doing fine. How are you doing? I actually just watched, I know I'm a bit late, but I watched the the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, shut up. You watch it without me. We're not having this conversation right now.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, but
How
I
was
got
it?
it was really really good. I can't believe like there's such a thing that is similar to the Avengers in like a superhero movie, but with a funny twist. And I like the jokes that they make, and it's so unusual. And I think it's better than the Avengers.
It's better than the Avengers.
Much better because it has humor in it, and I think superhero movies need humor.
So it was better in the comedy sense, but what about the action and all?
Action, I say is on par
Okay.
with the Avengers. Although, you know, what I like about the Avengers is Iron Man, of course, but they don't have Iron Man there.
So apart from that, the Expendables is also doing really well right now, especially with Kellen Lutz. I don't know if you know Kellen Lutz. He was actually in Twilight. I think he was one of the werewolves, but he was one of the not one of the famous ones. Obviously, everyone only knows Taylor Lautner, who is the werewolf, and he made a special appearance in the Expendables as one of the younger crew, and it received quite a good feedback.
And you watched it already, right?
I have watched it, yes, and actually, personally, I prefer the second one. I don't think that the third one was as good as the previous two movies.
But hey,
it's
you got to watch Arnold Schwarzenegger.
well, his part was very very minor in this one.
Okay.
He didn't appear that much as the previous two movies, and there was no Chuck Norris, so I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, I miss all the oldies. Sort of. I once. What kind of category we should put them as?
Put
Not
the actors.
as in like they used to play like the leading man in all those action movies, and I used to adore all of them. I watched them when I was young, and that's the reason why I think I would watch it again because I miss them a
Even
lot.
Jet Li's role was very minor in this one, but of course you still have Sylvester Stallone, and you have all the other guys, and this time it's different in the sense that they have a younger team as well, so it's two teams helping each other out. So I think if you are an Expendable fan, it's definitely worth watching.
I definitely agree. So the news for today is about water. What's so important about water?
It is important because normally when you pay for water, you expect a better quality as opposed to just getting it off the tap. But turns out that when you buy water in this country, it's actually a lot more infected than the tap water.
How is that so?
Apparently, it is affected with this E. coli, coliform, and Clostridium. These are called perfringens microbes, which are not supposed to be found in normal drinking water.
Yeah, E. coli is supposed to be found in like exposed meat and all that.
Yeah, and this water is actually the one that you buy from the vending machine. And 29 samples of the water were drawn from such machines all throughout Klang Valley, and almost all of them were contaminated.
Oh, that is scary. And in fact, the Star conducted this test together with Forum Air Malaysia. It's an organization formed to assist the National Water Services Commission. And in fact, the samples, like you said, were taken from vending machines all over Klang Valley, which is in Subang, Jaya, Cheras, Klang, and even Kuala Lumpur.
And under the Malaysia Safe Drinking Act, there should be no trace of any coliform or E. coli in drinking water, like I mentioned earlier.
I personally do not understand how could such harmful bacteria be inside the water. I mean, like they should be filtered, or at least it should be somehow, going through certain kind of process before it's being considered drinkable, isn't it?
It is probably just for them to save time and save cost, and by doing that, they are actually doing it at the expense of people's health because you don't know what goes into your water. It's not like you can see what goes into it because your water is just colorless. It's transparent, and when you get it from a vending machine, you just trust the vending machine to have already filtered the water, already treated the water, and that it's safe for drinking. But personally, I've never been a fan of buying water because I don't believe in that. I think that water is there. It should just be free for everyone, which is why I'm totally against it. And I always either take water from home or somewhere else. I never ever buy water. And I think that people should stop doing that as well because you see, even when you pay for water, it's not necessarily mean that it's of a better quality or that it's safer to drink. It's still contaminated and it's probably a lot safer and it works better to just take water from your own house.
Mm-hmm. I have nothing against what you say. I totally agree with that. And the next news of today, which is reported yesterday evening, is 3 feared dead at MRT site. So 3 construction workers are feared dead after 3,000 tons of concrete laid for the ongoing construction of an overhead rail passage of the Sungai Buloh Kajang Mass Rapid Transit, or in short, they call it MRT, line collapsed near Kota Damansara late yesterday.
And a spokesman of the Sungai Buloh Fire and Rescue Department said the incident occurred at about 9:40 p.m. and firemen rushed over to the scene after receiving a distressing call. And it is learned that 3 victims who were part of the building team were caught by surprise when a span of the guideway weighing about 300 tons came crashing on them.
In fact, several of their colleagues managed to scramble to safety or were pulled out by bystanders, but the 3 who believe to be in the middle of it to have been buried under the tons of concrete.
At the Fire and Rescue Department's Special Tactical Operation Rescue Malaysia, which is STORM, and K9 Tracker Down Unit were summoned and began carrying out the arduous task of tracing the location of these victims.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of this whole thing? I feel that, safety should come first. I mean, we see it along the way, on the way to work, especially along the road leading up to Jalan Duta and all that. You can see the construction work of MRT working side by side with bystanders and the public. I'm not sure if they take safety as the main precaution when they do their activities.
And another outcry from the people, being Malaysians, they were just like, when I saw on Facebook this morning, a lot of people were like, man, it's just another MRT incident. And because of that, people are not happy and they wish the government would take it more seriously and, like you said, pay more attention to the safety of the people.
Mm-hmm. So from MRT news, we go to the National Day's do's and don'ts. Why is this so important?
This is actually the morning day on the 22nd of August, and the government have come up with a couple of guidelines to help us to know what to do and what not to do on this National Mourning Day that's been declared. And it's happening in just a couple of days because today is the 19th and this is happening on the 22nd of August. So a couple of things that they want us to pay attention to is that the flag has to be flown at just half of the usual way of doing it, and also no bright or striking color clothing on that day, and all programs on radio and television should be replaced with religious programs, and also dress code by the Department Ceremonial and International Conference.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of do's and don'ts there. For you, what will you be doing on the National Day itself? Will you be there in the morning?
It's actually the National Mourning Day.
Oh, okay.
It's
the MH17. Will you be there?
It's not actually.
It is open to public or not?
It's actually more of a guideline of what to do and what not to do. I don't think they have. I'm not sure actually if they have a place for everyone to go. There probably is, but I don't have any news on that one yet.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, we hope that the victims of MH17 and also for the public who are there, if they are, if it's open to public, I believe, would have in a way, felt that everything is sort of like put to lead to rest in a way, because I think this issue of MH17, even on MH370, is somehow has affected a lot the psyche and the minds of Malaysians.
And I think it's definitely a very good move by the government as well to declare a national mourning day, because it helps for like you said, it affects the family a lot, especially mentally, and this will really help them to know that people are still out there thinking about them and praying for them, and that our thoughts are always with them, and we're wishing them all the best. Hopefully they have the courage to move on from this and just get on with their lives.
And the next news is a continuous news that we have been reported since last week, if I'm not mistaken. It's about the surrogate mother, and Thailand is urging them, as in general, surrogate mothers to register with authorities.
And the authorities are urging her to register so she can be entitled to all the healthcare that they can provide for her and her baby. And apart from that, many of the mothers have been left by crackdown on commercial surrogacy after raids on fertility clinics across the Thai capital in the wake of the baby gammy scandal.
Mm-hmm. And the health officer have urged mothers to register so that they can gain proper access to medical care. Besides that, some hospitals have, it's also about in general. I think the Thai government is taking a huge concern in terms of how its country is managing surrogacy. I'm not sure whether it is illegal or legal in Thailand, but
the government is actually banning it.
It's in the process, surrogacy. Or they have already banned it.
They said before that this is not supposed to be happening in the first place, that the government doesn't allow this kind of thing, but there have been all these agencies carrying out this commercial surrogacy anyway, so they're probably
But is there a law to ban?
No, that's the thing.
So it's just word of mouth. So anyway, the Medical Council of Thailand, the organization that supervises the country's medical system, are urging doctors not to refuse care for surrogate mothers, and I think that's definitely the right way to do it. And in return with that, I think it's because some hospitals have turned away mothers. They are worried they will be implicated in commercial surrogacy services. And I think the government definitely need to put either a stop or it should be heavily regulated for these surrogate mothers.
But it's great that they addressing this problem right away. They didn't just ignore it. They didn't say that this is not important as other things that are happening in the country. I am glad that they straight away address it. They got in touch with the couple and got them to come to Thailand, and now they are urging this mother and all other surrogate mothers to register with their babies so they can be properly taken care of by the government and be provided all the healthcare that they need, so they don't have to go at it alone, don't have to suffer by themselves, especially because most of these women don't have that much money in the first place.
Another positive news that is developing in Myanmar is its phone services. So QSC on Friday became the first foreign telecommunications company to offer services in Myanmar, setting up the country to be one of the world's first predominantly mobile web nation. I'm so happy for them. I remember back in 2009 when I was in Myanmar for a humanitarian aid. I still remember how expensive it was, mobile phone. If you own a mobile phone, you are considered to be the cream of the crop, or those who are on the higher to upper middle class, and it is so expensive that I didn't call anyone at all for my 4 months there.
And these Orido's rollout, which is more than a year after the company won 2 coveted licenses to operate in Myanmar, will be followed by a service from Norway's Telenor AS. And as the country transformed to a nominally civilian government in 2011, the telecom sector was pegged as one of the most desperately needed investment and modernization. I guess that goes back to what you were saying about the phones. And it is also very lucrative, and only North Korea has a lower cell phone penetration.
I can understand why North Korea has very little mobile penetration. Partly is, of course, it's a closed country. But in Myanmar, as it tries to open up, I think more and more new technological development are coming into the country, and it's definitely going into a much more positive direction. So that's from Myanmar. From another country that unfortunately is facing a lot of hardship is Indonesia. Survivors of Indonesia tour boat drank urine, swam to volcano island. So 13 people lost at sea for 2 days when their tourist boat sank in Indonesia were rescued on Monday after a horrific ordeal that had forced other survivors to swim to a volcanic island and drank their own urine. 2 Spanish men were still missing after the boat, which was also carrying Indonesian crew, sank on Saturday as it made the long voyage from Lombok Island to Komodo Island, a popular tourist destination.
And the vessel went down slowly, breaking up into pieces close to the tiny Sangyang Island after running into a reef and being hit by a storm. But there was no communications equipment for them on board to radio for help. And a first group of 10 foreigners of various nationalities, including Britons, Germans, Italians, were rescued on Sunday. And a French survivor also told how they perched on the roof of a boat for hours until it sank, and eventually decided to swim to an island on the horizon, even though a volcano on it was emitting smoke at that time. So it seems that they were really desperate for help, and yet there was no one to help them out with it. They had no radio on board. They didn't have any means of communication to the outside world, and they just had to make the best out of what they had at that time.
Mm-hmm. Another news that I think has caught the eyes of everyone is about budget. So countries like Indonesia's, but countries like Indonesia and also Malaysia are laying their budget out for 2015. Of course, for Indonesia, Susilo Bambang, he will be stepping down in October after serving almost a decade in the office, and his budget is very, very wide. And this president, speaking at his last State of the Nation address, I would suggest it would be similar to State of the Union address, was reluctant to make an effort to end the nation's fixation on subsidized fuel that would leave the President-elect Jokowi with the uphill battle of dealing with the subsidy issue. You know, subsidy has always been an issue. Even in Malaysia, whenever the government insists on putting a subsidy on, especially on petroleum, people will go insane. And I think it's justified because it's so expensive in today's cost of living. It's impossible to not be mad at the hike of, the price of oil.
It is, and also with the living cost in Malaysia right now, it's getting higher and higher each year, and people are obviously looking for more subsidy from the government. But then again, it has to be a give and take thing. If they actually provide us more subsidy, they're obviously going to increase something else, and in the end, we still have to pay for it eventually. And it's kind of hard because a lot of young people these days, when they graduate, they have trouble trying to buy a house, trying to buy a car. It's not. I still remember when I was younger, my dad always told me, I'm going to buy a house now because when you grow up, I don't think that you can afford any house. And I didn't get it back then, but I definitely understand what he means now, and it definitely makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And in Malaysia also, the government will be laying out its budget. For Prime Minister Najib, it will be in October, and of course its budget would include a lot of different ideas. In its budget 2014, I felt it was really unique because you remember the hashtag budget 2014, where he actually was on Twitter and on Facebook to sort of get feedback from the voices of the rakyat on what he feel that people should express their ideas on what the budget of our nation should be. And I think it's very, very positive to get those kind of very real-time feedback from the people on the ground.
So what are the key areas that he will be focusing on?
The key areas, I think one of it would be the public transportation, especially in the building of the MRT trains, which we reported earlier. The MRT trains will be a huge project. And of course, not to forget the GST tax. I think he will announce it as well. It is something that a lot of Malaysians are really, really nervous about, and partly it's because GST is something that is a foreign word to many Malaysians, and they don't understand how it would impact Malaysians in general. I think a lot of our friends also have very, very vague idea. Of course, but through the government, the voices would be GST is good. It will just be a replacement for the current sales and the current sales tax. But in actuality, it's a bit more complicated. And apparently, it will tax every single production or means of production. For example, you are not only going to be taxed for the final consumer product. Let's say you are buying an iPad. The iPad itself will be taxed if it's produced in Malaysia, from the early production, from the resources that they use also will be taxed. So it's from the upstream to downstream taxation. So it's a bit more complicated.
And Najib also said that the government will increase the people's gross income by reducing the spread of personal income tax by 1 to 3 as announced in the 2014 budget. And the measure meant that some 300,000 people will no longer have to pay income tax. Apart from that, he also said that corporate tax and small and medium enterprises income tax would also be reduced by 1%, but that is from the year 2016 onwards after assessment, while corporative income tax will be slashed by 1 or 2% from the 2015 year of assessment.
So do you agree with the GST? And with that, the government can slash income tax for a number of people?
Well, personally, I don't know that much about paying tax and all that because I'm still a student and I'm not too aware about that. But I think that it would definitely decrease the burden of people, especially those who are not earning that much.
And the 1,200 One Malaysian People's Aid at 1,200 ringgit per year will continue to be distributed for the next 5 years.
And he also talks about affordable housing here.
It's interesting because I think Prime Minister Najib is definitely listening to the ground, but I think it's not fast enough. I mean, he's having all this One Malaysia welfare program, housing program and all that, but a lot of the time people are still very much skeptical of his administration. It is because partly they feel that he's a bit too late in his response and he's doing it in half hiffy way, like he just do it for the sake of doing it. He don't really quite understand the needs of the people. So with the Malaysia's budget, just to come back to Indonesia's budget, Indonesia, as I mentioned earlier, they are also having problem with fuel subsidy in particular, and this is because Indonesians consume a lot of energy, and a lot of its subsidies focuses on energy, and this is not a popular policy to cut subsidy. The same goes to Malaysia as well. So I'm not sure how the government is going to cut their budget if they don't cut the subsidy. Maybe they can increase the tax, or they can somehow, I guess, change the behavior of people by asking them to consume less.
Yeah, and with that, I think we'll wrap up the news for this morning. And yeah, I hope everyone learned something from our news presentation today.
And of course, you can always listen to us on Facebook and Twitter. And you can respond to us on Facebook and Twitter, and listen to us at our website at www.durianasean.com.